continue to gain as an investor, because you're constantly thinking through, how do I invest this? Where's my investment sitting? You're constantly looking at your investments and staying up to date on them. And so it's giving you this investor mindset that maybe we wouldn't have had if we weren't continually researching in the space, versus people that, let's say, just put a chunk in and then they sit it and leave it for a whole year, and then they come and reallocate back to it. So you're getting
Hello everyone. We're back and we're bringing the video that you guys were wanting. This is all the mistakes we've made in the cryptocurrency space. And a lot of people don't like to talk about their mistakes. They just like to talk about their wins. But it's very important to talk about your mistakes, because one of the tips I give people when they first start investing in crypto or they want to get in is I say, go find someone that has been very successful in this space and ask them everything that they have done to be successful. And then ask them a second question. Ask them everything they did wrong and what not to do. Now, I think that's one of the best things, because when you're in real estate, right? Let's just take real estate, for example. Someone is going to probably start by saying, this is what you're going to need to look for in a house. This is what you're going to need to look for in a rental property. This is where you're going to need to look for it. This is what the blah, 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 all that stuff. And then what they won't tell you quite yet is probably all the things that you shouldn't do. Now, that's really important, and that does come, and people say, hey, you shouldn't buy a house without getting an inspection on X, Y, and Z, right? You shouldn't buy a house in a place that doesn't have demand, right? All these different things. And I'm just making up stuff within real estate, but just to give you guys perspective. And so same thing in the crypto market. It's very important to know what to do, but it's as equally important to know what not to do. And the great thing about us is that we went through all this on our own. We did trial and error. We were the definition of trial and error, right? Even though we invested in ourselves, we invested in our education, we invested in learning and growing in this space, but we also went out on a limb and did a lot of it on our own. And it's a part of the reason of why we actually created Digital Asset Sisters, is because, well, first of all, it was the demand. People kept coming up to us asking us, hey, can you help us? Can you do this for us? Can you do that? And we saw, oh, wow, like a lot of people need this, and we can't just keep helping everyone, right? We need to actually create a streamlined process for people. And then we look back on how we went through everything, and we're like, the amount of time it takes for someone to be successful in this space is like, or to even get invested, is typically 3 years if they're going to do it correctly. That's really what it took for us. Like, yes, we saw some success, but we also did some not so good things. Now we have a very, very solid method to where we're not getting into necessarily like those same mistakes anymore. And we're very solid.
I am very excited. Thanks for the intro, Kaelin. But I just am really excited to get into the very specifics of what you guys have been asking for and wanting to know, because again, not many people share their mistakes. They share their successes, but don't share their mistakes. So in this video, we're just going to run through some of those mistakes with you guys so that maybe you can mitigate and learn from our mistakes and not go into some of those. So can I just start with one of the biggest ones?
Well, no, let's not do the biggest one yet. Let's save that one. Let's save that one till the end.
I would say the biggest one leads into all the other ones that we've learned. So,
well, I want to save that one till the end.
Really?
So we're going to save our biggest, most costly mistake till the very end, because I want to share everything else before, because they're more little, and then we can actually dive deep into that one.
Sure.
Awesome. Okay, well, start off with maybe like some of your little mistakes that when you look back, you wish like you could have done things differently or it cost you something?
Um, I mean, I would say this is small because it's not like it cost me anything huge, but if I did learn how to take profits early on instead of just saying, "Oh, I'm going to hold this asset," which I think is kind of uh, some people would be greatly satisfied with just holding on, versus a lot of people make the mistake of selling out too early, and they get fearful and then they sell. Versus on the other hand, a lot of people hold and never sell. So I think the worst position to be is being caught in the middle of maybe both of those, or maybe on either side of those. You want to position yourself in the middle to where you can take profits, but you also know how to hold. And you're not either getting stuck in, oh, I'm so emotional, the market is down, the fear and greed index is 11, we're down 50%, I'm just going to pull assets out. That is probably the worst thing that you can do because you're uprooting a seed that you've planted. And when you're uprooting that seed, you never have the time to allow it to flourish and to grow into the fullness of what it's actually supposed to do. And I think that is one of the number one costly mistakes that investors do is they uproot their seed prematurely.
Yep.
And so I would say that is a one key thing of learning not to do, but then also learning how to harvest your fruit so that it doesn't just overspoil on this beautiful tree.
Yeah. And I think that's great, Ken, and you put that very, very eloquently, I would say. And I mean, she's so right. I think one of our biggest things is we wish like we've went through a couple of cycles now and we have long-term vision. We are holders. We will not sell specific assets, but that doesn't mean because we have that long-term vision of where they're truly going to go. Imagine if people with Amazon sold at $100. Yeah, it went up at 10x and they sold at $100. Imagine if they sold all of that, it went back down to $10 and then it went all the way up to 3,200, right? Imagine if they would have sold that. They gained profit. That's amazing. But you're still not gaining that full fruition of where it's actually going in the future. So that's what Kinley's saying. But in the meantime, Amazon did go up and down. And what we see a lot of times in this space is people just only holding, never taking profit, and then they feel stuck. They're like, "Oh, I have a lot of these assets," and they just get disheartened because they were up and they're like, "Whoa, I was up like over 1,000%." And now they're down sitting at 200%, which is still way better than a lot of traditional investments. But if you can start to learn how to take a percentage, not a whole, but a percentage of profit at the top, then you're actually going to be set for these cycles. We teach a lot of that on the difference between, let's say, a speculative market versus a utility-based market, the different cycles, right? But I do think that's a good one, Ken. And then one that I was going to talk about is dollar cost averaging. I wish I would have dollar cost averaged way more back 4 years ago, 5 years ago. What I tended to do when I first got into the market was really gain confidence in specific assets and I'd invest large portions at a time. That's okay. I'm still sitting quite pretty on my investments today. And very, very good. But I actually think rather than investing a large portion, which I do think there are times and moments you should invest a large portion, especially let's say you're getting into the market, you're starting to gain education. You don't want to just be investing $10 a month, like really what is that going to do in the long run? And you're probably going to miss out on an early investment. So there's sometimes where you want to invest a larger amount, but then you also want to just keep dollar cost averaging, right? And there's different strategies to this, but I think that's something I wish and a mistake I made back then, because I think I would have been sitting way higher today if I dollar cost average, like let's say $100 a week back when I was in college and back when we started really researching this stuff. right? If I just did $100 a week, I would be sitting, it's drastically different. And that's what I'm realizing is like it is drastically different. And you think, well, but the asset's up, well, do I even have $100 a week? Like yes. I
Yeah,
know everyone's,
I would say even with dollar cost averaging, it's it is about the investment, but it's about the mindset that you continue to gain as an investor because you're constantly thinking through how do I invest this? Where's my investment sitting? You're constantly looking at your investments and staying up to date on them. And so it's giving you this investor mindset that maybe we wouldn't have had if we weren't continually researching it in the space versus people that, let's say, just put a chunk in and then they sit it and leave it for a whole year and then they come and
yeah.
reallocate back to it. So you're getting in the game of an investor mindset and in the game of learning how to see opportunities different than other people.
And consistently be in it, consistently learn. That's great, Ken.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then do you have another little one? I have another little one.
Why don't you share your other little one and then I'll
And then
see
you
if
can
I have
start
one.
on the big one.
Sure.
Everyone's like, what are they talking about here? So, another little one I would say is not investing in a greedy time period. So, I've made this mistake, and I remember back when, you know, um, when I bought an asset down very, very low, and I was buying that asset very, very low. And then it started running, the whole market did. And I remember just like I haven't bought as much as I wanted to. I haven't gotten to my goal of X amount of this amount of asset. And so what I started doing was putting money in. And I probably started putting money in and then I put it in at the top. And yes, I got to my goal, but I ended up buying probably half of the shares I could have bought in with a large portion of money. And this was early on, this was probably 5 years ago, was a large portion of money that I could have bought if I just waited, looked at history, and realized this asset is going to come back down. Right. And so when I was putting that in, then I think it was after a year, the asset came back down and it came back down probably over 60%. And so my money was down 60%. I was actually still up in my portfolio, just trying to be transparent here because I had buys before, but with that portion of money that I put in at the top, I was down on. And so that really taught me that, okay, we cannot invest in greedy times. There are cycles to this market and and what we really have to do is like any investment is good. That investment actually, just to let you guys know, from where I bought at that spot, sitting today, we're up here. So I'm up on that investment. But for a time period, I was down when I could have invested more down here. And that's what I'm trying to say is really this taught us to look at the fear and greed index. This taught us to look at the relative strength index. This taught us to understand, okay, these things aren't just going to run like overnight. And yes, sometimes they do, but what you want to do is keep a level head, keep emotionally sound, and you want to understand, okay, where are the markets really at? Take a deep breath before you just start getting in. Because I remember, and you probably remember times like this, Ken, but being up at like 12 a.m., 1 a.m. at night and being like, okay, should I buy?
Yeah.
We do this? Like, okay, like I think it's going to keep going here. And then it trickles back down like 2 cents and you're like, oh wait, let me wait. Like it's going to keep
Yeah.
going. And that was the beginning of our investor. And I'm okay with that. I'm learned now. I don't sit at the computer. When I buy and I
Hmm.
want to buy because I know where the overall market is at. But I don't sit at the computer like hoping that it's going to go down 2 cents.
Yeah. That's good.
Just to give perspective. So, really, the overall lesson learned from that is buy in times of fear and don't FOMO into the market, right? But you also, the next lesson you have to realize is that if you're in a very, very quality asset, it doesn't really matter where you're going to buy it right now. It doesn't, because of the long-term potential.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm already up on that buy that I bought up higher, but I could have gained a better quantity of that asset.
That's good. And I think that, yeah, we've learned a lot and we've been able to help our community stay emotionally stable. I know in another video I said emotionally volatile. So emotionally stable, which I think we pride ourselves and our community on, is just that level-headedness that we've been able to instill within our community, that we're not going like this and buying when there's greed and selling when there's fear. We're doing the opposite. And I think that's just something that we've learned through experience of 7 years in the market, and it's only going to get better and better and better.
But if you're
And then,
down, well, in certain assets, like that's where a lot of our, like, that's where you have to gain confidence too. Like, okay, if you got in, let's say just last year and you're down, still be confident you're in a good asset, right?
don't uproot the seed too early.
Yeah.
Don't uproot it prematurely because you won't be able to see the harvest.
Yeah. Okay,
So
let's get into our
that's
biggest
fine.
mistake.
Hold on. Before we do that, since you stopped me at the very beginning, I'm going to stop you. Before we do that, I just wanted to say all the little mistakes, though, that a lot of people make today, like using the same email, keeping their assets on an exchange, all of those things, I think we didn't necessarily experience those things thanks to our mom, because our mom actually has always been super high in security and tech and really understanding the ins and outs of that. And so I would say we kind of learned from her and some of her mistakes prior to even being in crypto, how to be very secure online and within investing, that we learned from that and we ran with it. So we started at her low point. And so now people that we're helping are starting at our low point, which is here. Hers was here, ours is here, and it just keeps building and building and building, if that makes sense. So we love that. All right, drum roll. Okay, go ahead, Kay. Do you want to start or do you want me to?
Sure, I'll start.
The suspense.
So, this is the biggest mistake we've made in crypto. The biggest mistake and the most costly mistake we've made as well, in crypto. And so, this really, and granted, we're young as well. So, we're both in our early 20s. And yes, we're both in our early 20s. And we were. This is when we made the mistake. And we're still in our early 20s. But like when we made the mistake, I think I was like actually 20. So I was young, so this was a lot of money for me. But basically, we were investing in very, very high quality assets, some of the same assets we invest in today. And we were doing that, we were focused on it. But as we started researching more, we started getting into all these different spaces. We starting to understand, oh, you can gain yield on these assets. Oh, you can do this, you can do that. One of the biggest things we found out is that you can buy nodes and that you can actually purchase a large amount of a up and coming crypto and start to gain yield on the node. Now, we didn't understand how to evaluate these different companies and these different cryptocurrencies with specifically the nodes or this yield on it as well. So what we did was we were looking at a couple of different ones and we were doing some deep diving research, but granted, we hadn't had experience with this in the past. And we decided, let's just try to get into one project. Let's try to get into it. The thing with these is that you have to put a solid amount of money down to really start making good money in these. and you can correct me if I'm wrong in anything. What we ended up doing, because we didn't want to use our own money, we were like, let's leverage. So we leveraged.
We could have used our own money. Just want to
We,
make it clear.
yes.
People out here that are like, oh, debt or loans are bad. Um, I think that's a whole nother topic for another time.
Yeah.
But stick around because we will get into that as
Yeah.
well.
Yes. But this has taught us so much in the crypto space, so much. And we say we'd never take this back. We would
I
never take
honestly
this back.
wouldn't.
I'd lose the money again, every single time if I could go back because it's taught me way more and it's going to make me way more money in the future than
Hmm.
not making that mistake would have been.
Yeah.
So, or not even trying, like not taking the risk to do that like we
Yes.
did. Um, if we were too scared, we wouldn't have learned. So, what we did was we did probably a month of deep dive research into this one project that we wanted to get into. We looked at the team, we looked at the community, we looked at the token, and we said, okay, we think this is decent. It looks promising. It wasn't anything like our other cryptos that we had very solid points on that we were invested in. It was completely different, but we were like, okay, it looks promising. They're promising this much at this time period. What we have to do is X, Y, and Z. So instead of using our own money, which we could have done, we went and got a loan and we leveraged this investment. And we went and got a loan. We leveraged this investment and we got in. And every single month we were tracking, we were doing stuff with this. And then the price started to tank a little bit. And we were like, okay, what's going on? What's going on? Our yield wasn't as much. The price was down. We were trying to figure out what was going on. And essentially, what happens in these projects is a lot of people come in at the beginning and it's on these like a lot of times it's multi-level marketing projects. It's in the crypto space specifically, it's projects that promise you like crazy amounts of yield and so we got in and we were making some good money,
We've
but
had
then
a lot of utility use case partnerships that we now talk about today.
yeah, yeah. So, but then it started going down because the thing is that the people at the beginning who are at the bottom, they start making a lot of money from all these people coming in. But once people start pulling out their money and people start taking profits, the returns start to go down, 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 and down. And then what happens when the return starts to go down? More people start taking out their money and say, hey, I don't want to be in this project.
The
So we were
value of the asset also goes down.
the value of the asset also goes down. So we were like sitting there like, should we take our money out? Should we? So it probably went half of what we bought it for. And then we ended up taking out some of our capital. Um,
I don't think we did, but that's needless to say on here. I think we actually maybe discussed taking some out, but I remember that I don't think we ended up doing that. And we basically wrote it all the way to the bottom to zero. And now it's sitting
no, I remember I took out some. I took out some because we all did.
regardless.
We all did. Um,
We
anyway.
can agree to disagree online. That's fine. I mean, people just will get to know us.
Yeah, guys, this is real life. We're not trying to hide anything like but I do remember we took out some, but we'll discuss it later. But anyway, so it's not like we lost the full amount, but we took out some. It was like below probably half of its evaluation. We were trying to still ride this. We were still trying to like, okay, let's see where this can go. Um, and ultimately, we still had to pay back our loan. So since we were leveraged and we had to pay back our loan, and thank goodness it was friends and like a friends and family loan. So it wasn't like they were liquidating us or anything like that. And it wasn't like, oh, we had to repay at this dot or the interest was
We
like
did.
10 times higher.
Yeah. I just
I'm
want to say
talking
we
about
never I just want to say we never missed a payment. We paid it back within, I think we had a 2-year loan off of it. And we were able to pay the full amount back. So I think though for us in that time period, we were like, wow, the amount, because how we calculated it was whatever our payment was, we were actually going to be making off that node. And so we wouldn't be paying it out of our pocket. We would be profiting off the node and then repaying the loan. But now, because we made that mistake, for 2 years, we had a good chunk of money that both Kaelin and I had to be paying out of pocket that we were working for now instead of gaining that yield off of.
Yeah.
And so that was the costly mistake that we made.
It was a pretty decent chunk of money that we had to be paying back.
But never once did we complain. Never once did we get upset. We just took it. We're like, I mean, we got upset at ourselves, obviously, for making that.
And we learned. We literally said, okay, what did we do wrong here?
Mhm.
Like, why did we? One thing is that we saw everyone else making money in this. We saw
Yeah.
everyone else making money, and we didn't go to someone that was knowledgeable in this either. We
Yeah.
didn't. We tried to do it all on our own, and we tried to look at a project and just duplicate what someone was doing instead of going to, which we could have gone to Crypto Canvas. We could have gone to the analyst that was making good money on these things that were actually legit and gone to him. But we tried to do it all on our own. And then we didn't spend enough time actually learning. We jumped in. And then the third mistake is that we leveraged. And
All
we
three
do
of
like
those
leverage in different
at once
areas.
are not good. All
Yeah.
three of those at once, costly mistake.
Yeah. And we will say we do like leverage in other areas, but we do not leverage our crypto ever. And there's multiple reasons for that. First of all, this is a very, very volatile market. So unless you're doing like short-term trading or swing trading, a long-term leverage on this, you're going to be going up and down. And so once you come down, you're going to get a margin call. Like there's just we've seen this. We saw this in this past year that a lot of people had margin calls because they leveraged their crypto because they thought it was just going to keep going up. So until there's clarity, until there's regulations, it's not the smartest thing to do. You can do it, but we do not like it in this market. So long story short, and just lesson learned is that we had to do more research. We had to stay focused. We already had great assets we were investing in.
Yes.
We could have spent that money in those same assets and we could have been up way further today if we spent that money in the assets we were confident in. We stayed focused, but a lot of times what people do in this space is they come in and they start looking at everything that can make them money, every literary
Flashy things.
Yes.
The flashy things are what get people in the wrong position at the wrong time. The constant long-term generational legacy building infrastructure people often neglect. And I think, again, why a lot of young people aren't in this space is because they want to get rich quick. They want a quick buck. In reality, that's not what this market is. It's staying emotional and being confident.
Yeah. And I want to say too that now we get deals that have come to us quite a bit, and we vet them so hardcore, and we have a system of vetting them. One of these deals that came to us, the crypto was up at around like $6. People kept asking us about it, and as soon as we started researching, doing more and more and more research, this was crazy multi-level marketing. This was people were getting cars to go share this crypto with people. People were getting rewards on other people buying the crypto. It was just like so evident to us. And then we also saw, they had a great team behind this. So it was super deceiving because they had a great team. We even met one of the team members. But you have to look at the longevity. Even if they weren't being malicious, they weren't trying to get people in and do a pump and dump. The thing is that what is the longevity when people stop getting rewards from other people coming in? What is the longevity when people stop coming in or people want to start taking out their money? That's what you have to start looking at. So we evaluated this and then we kept telling people like, hey, this is not financial advice, but we're not touching that. We're not
Hmm.
touching that. 3 months later, after we did like 4 months of research on it, it's now below $1 and it's sitting there like that's one of it's just sitting there.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are crushed because they got in up at $6 and that's not a typical drop. Just because we're in a bear market, that's not what typical cryptos are doing. That's a okay, a lot of people took out their money and this thing isn't really recovering.
But
So,
we're able to evaluate that now because we actually
mhm.
went through that and saw it
Yes.
earlier. And so again, it's
And help other people be able to not get into those things as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was our biggest mistake. We lost over 20K, I'll tell you guys, in that deal. Just to be honest, we lost over 20K in that deal. And we paid back every single cent of it. And
Plus
we did it
interest.
plus interest. And we did it with a smile on our face because we owned up to it. We said we made a mistake and we're not going to do this again. We're going to focus on where we truly know this market is going and we're going to help other people do the same.
Yep. So
So,
just because there's one bad apple in the group doesn't mean you have to take yourself away and remove yourself from the opportunity completely. So if
mhm,
anybody gets to take anything from this, I would say take that part because I know there's a lot of people that have lost money in this space, but don't let one bad apple ruin the whole market for you because there is
exactly.
opportunity and you can be a part of it. So,
Yep, 100% Ken.
all right.
Awesome. We'll see you guys on the next one.